Hey, what's happening, Cincinnati soccer talkers? Welcome to the big show here this Monday evening. Glad you're with us. I'm Nick Suberly. FC Cincinnati falls over the weekend to DC United 2-1. Of course, a win in hell is real in the middle of the week against the Columbus Crew. So an up and down week for the Orange and Blue. Lots to discuss here this week on the show. We've got special guest Gerard Nijkamp, FC Cincinnati General Manager, joining us this week on the podcast. So without further ado, if you have any thoughts, if you're watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, we certainly appreciate you tuning in. If you've got questions or comments or thoughts, please feel free to chime in. If you're listening to us after the fact, you can also email us feedback at cincinnati-soccer-talk.com. You can also hit us up on Twitter as well at Cincy Soccer Talk. We always start off our show with our best and worst. So Brian Weigel, you're going to kick things off this week. Give me your best and worst of what happened in the Orange and Blue last week.
Hey, everybody. Glad to have you tuning in here and very excited to be drinking my Dutch beer with our Dutch general manager, Gerard Nijkamp, this evening. So welcome, y'all. My best for this week, man. I like seeing the 4-3-3. While it's not perfect yet, and I still think we're missing some pieces, that you did see some creativity out of that system. And moving forward, I think we're a little bit more effective. So I was very excited to see that. My worst of the week is kind of that weakness in there. I still don't feel like we have that piece of that central playmaker. I thought Cruz did fine at times. I thought Kuba did fine, playing off that left a little bit at times. But things that hopefully we'll discuss later in the show with our general manager.
All right. We'll kick it over now to the professional, Michael Lahoud, making his return as well. Michael, you got a best and worst for this week?
My best was seeing that central midfield partnership between Camo and Harris develop. You see why Camo is highly rated. He brings a little bit more calm and savviness in his movement. And I really like that as the club moves forward for him to get his match fitness and to develop into just being more comfortable with FC Cincinnati and MLS soccer. And my worst was just not being able to get the result. I really liked how the team played midweek, and to get that win against Columbus was huge. And just I would like to see the guys reward themselves for how much hard work they've been putting in throughout this year. And it came up short in the end. But so, unfortunate not to reward yourself to get that 2 wins in a row.
Yeah. I'm going to put you on the spot, Gerard. Do you want to give us a best and worst for this week for the Orange and Blue?
Yeah, it's not. I have to say it's not directly for the Orange and Blue. Sorry for that. My best is that my wife is in town, and my worst is that my daughter was leaving by last week. No, just kidding. But of course, the best is a win against our rival Columbus. And I have to also to say, and I agree, our biggest disappointment was yesterday evening by losing against DC. We were thinking that our takeaways from the game against Columbus, that we were also capable to get a good result against DC. But you can see we are in the middle of the process, and I think we will talk about it this evening. But a lot of things to do, and we are aware of that.
Yeah, there's a lot going on from a team standpoint. We'd love to get into tonight. Last week we had Ken Hetker on the show, and Ken was very passionate about his thoughts on the Orange and Blue. So Ken, I'm going to kick it over to you. Like after your comments last week on the show, what did you see out of the Orange and Blue that is making you feel better, making you feel worse? Like where do you kind of stand now?
Well, I mean, I think it's a black and white issue, sort of just, yes, against Columbus, we looked good. The speed of play looked like it was there. And the other, I guess, positive I saw this last game was actually the combo between Harris and Camo. I'll never get their last names correct, but they seem to have formed a good partnership in that point in time, or at this point in time. I guess the negative, just to be honest, is we're not consistent. We flail frequently and too frequently. We look good against Columbus, and then we looked disjointed, to be honest, quite a bit against DC United, and they were considered the worst of the league, and to lose that at I know it's not home with a bunch of fans, but to lose that at home hurts worse than it should. And I know there might not be a wooden spoon being passed around, but we're back in that running for that, and that doesn't make me feel good, just to be honest. So that's my best and worst.
Gerard, when you hear Ken make the comments about consistency and seeing that partnership with Kamahelo and Harris, is that what you were kind of envisioning when you brought those guys in? And what do you make of the lack of consistency with FC Cincinnati?
Yeah, that's a good point, and I fully agree with that. We as coaches, especially Jaap with his coaching staff, missing that too. There are also reasons for it. We miss a lot of players every time. In the game against Columbus was Yuya in the pitch and Alan Cruz on the 10 position, and they are injured now. That's a pity, because then it's also not helping to become consistent and working more on that 1-4-3-3 system and do our offensive things, but also how we want to defend like we did against Columbus. But it is the situation where we are in, the huge amount of games, not only for us, of course, that's also for DC. But I have to say, if you want to be dominant, and at this moment we want to be in charge, we want to create that action soccer and not reaction, then it's always a little bit easier when you are dropping yourself like DC did and playing from the counter attack, and then you have to be really consistent, very accurate in your passing, patient in your passing, passing through the lines. I think Harris and Camo are capable of to do it, and I hear this evening also. Yeah, but Camo is working on his fitness. Columbus 70 minutes. That was very nice that he keep up that 70 minutes. Now it was 60 minutes, and you saw, and it was a good decision by Jaap to take him off. Harris is unbelievable. 35 years old. His fourth year, he didn't miss any match in Philly, and now also in our club. It's a big compliment for him. Yesterday with Frankie, you see him also struggling sometimes. He show his potential, he show his talents, but still it is not consistent. And yeah, we have to work on that. And we need also more players getting on board again. Yuya was growing against Columbus, so it was a pity we had him yesterday. So every time we are a little bit struggling with this part, but we addressed it, and we know where the lack is, and we try to work on it. But it was for us also yesterday disappointed to not have that result against DC.
Yeah, I thought Yuya Kubo was specifically a very big miss against Columbus. It seemed like Jaap put him out there in a free role. He had license to come deep and get on the ball in the midfield. He floated inside. Him and Barreal switched sides a couple of times. And I think that seeing him go out injured and then seeing the drop off of having, against Columbus, having a guy like Joe Zhao and Frankie Amaya on the bench as pieces to bring on, then those guys are forced into the starting lineup. I think it's that lack of depth that a lot of people are seeing. We look at our bench and we see needing to bring in a guy like Rashawn Daly, who has a lot of qualities, but, having to bring him on as a winger, I think that's one of the things we look at. So I wonder, if there's thoughts on, continuing to not only boost the top end talent at FC Cincinnati, but also to bring in those useful pieces that are depth pieces that are needed for the long MLS season.
Yeah, in the beginning of my appointment for the club, I spoke already. This project will take several years to build a team who can compete in this league. And it is not by 1 or 2 windows, but I think 4 or 5 windows. It will need to be on the standards what we think we can compete for. To be in playoffs and successful in this league and to be ready in the new stadium. I have to, and I hope also everyone gives a little bit the credits on that we make improvement. I hear that this evening. Yes, we make some improvement, we make some progress, but every week we have less players on board, and that's also the unbelievable, challenging schedule. Where are we in? But that's not only for us. That is for every team. But when you are a little bit longer in this league, you have create also more your depth than we have. And with all respect of the players, we have to use now. Every time it is a little bit more challenging to keep up the standard. What is needed to be competitive in a match? So that's the struggle and the way the coaching staff on the leadership of Jaap has to work on. And we are happy that Rashan is back, that Hassan is back from the loan, and that they didn't go into the playoffs of their USL teams. Because if you imagine when these guys were not on board, then maybe we have just 2 or 3 players on the bench against DC, and that was really hard because you need players on the bench to get in the team, to give Camus some rest, that he is ready for Minnesota again next week, and hopefully we have Kendall back, we have Yuya soon back. Michael is starting training in the pitch again. It's managing at this moment also fitness, and not only to improve in the way we want to play. Because against Columbus we were quite positive, and yesterday we were also disappointed where we put our quality in that match.
Gerard, I have a question, and this is Michael Lahoud. When you talk about standards for this year, how has the performance of this team so far this season aligned with your expectations? You know, we have the MLS is Back tournament, and we've gotten all the way to here, but how has the performances so far from the start of preseason till now aligned with your expectations for team performances?
Yeah, I think you have to put this question in 2 parts. That's the non-COVID part and the COVID part. Before COVID, we had our window. We say goodbye to certain players we didn't believe in anymore, who could bring us to the next stage of the club, and we bring some players in. We were thinking, and we still believe in, that they can help us short term and play for the long term when we go into the new stadium. Then the moment of COVID and this pandemic, and we come in this uncertain times. The league organized protocols for coming back into practice individually and after in team, and we were going to Orlando. In between we had also our change of our head coach. We know that story, and all these things we have to cope with. We can talk, I think, 1 hour about the schedule. Where are we in? And in the way we have to face our opponents. Before COVID, we know also our schedule, and if you can play in a regular base, home and away game, you can manage much easier your fitness and your physical part on the road and when you are playing home. And now we were 3 times on the road, 5 times now at home. You can imagine that is difficult. But having said that, we want to see progress, and progress not only seeing by our eyes, but also measured by the stats. And then you can see so far 80 games played, and last season 34 matches. So we are not still there where we are at this moment. We scored less goals than that's true. We concede less goals. That's also true. The expected goals in percentage is higher, so that means we can control the match more. We have more positional game. We receive less chances against us. So if you look at that you see we make progress, and then I can be not satisfied, because I was thinking we were a little bit further, especially with some individuals I was bringing in winter to the club. But I know also before the pandemic and also in this summer and also now, that we need more windows to improve this roster. I bring with my staff 3 new players: Camagelo Mococho, Alvaro Barrial. We have in a trial situation with our corporation, our first signing, Kovakovic, Franko Kovakovic. I can tell a little bit more also about him. But every time we need new signings to improve the roster. But to be honest, yes, I was also thinking we were a little bit further in the process. But I have to be also realistic, and especially with the pandemic, where we are, and we have to work on that to make more progress for next season, and to finish the season as good as possible.
So you're addressing earlier the 4 to 5 windows. And I think this will be your 4th upcoming. A lot of us fans are very familiar with Minnesota United and their rough start. Their season 2 has some improvement, not a lot, mostly shifting out players. But then their 3rd season, which you'll be this upcoming year for you, they shot off, made the playoffs. I think 4th in the West. First off, do you think that's a realistic expectation with the amount of players you're going to have to bring in next year, that we could be in the top 4 or 5? Because I think there's that expectation going into the new stadium.
Yeah, I have to say, I came in July 2019. Luciano was that time in charge. At that time, I was also following the way the club at that moment were thinking to make their decisions in new signing, and they did already their homework. So let's say my first really window was this winter window. So the 2nd window, now we go to the 3rd window. But the example of Minnesota is right. And I hear also Toronto, it took 10 years to reach for the first time the playoffs. So then we have some more time. But the examples are there that you not can build a roster just like this. Mm-hmm. And we are Cincinnati. We invest a lot in our infrastructure, and we can be very proud on that in our facilities, MHTC, but now also in the West End Stadium. And that's the reason we will attract interesting new players for the future. But we are also Cincinnati, and that means we have to build a legacy. And not only the legacy by winning cups, but also to create an environment where players want to be. That can be also our head coach, who has a big career as a player, who is very interesting as a head coach and is growing in that role. But players say from abroad, hey, I want to be part of that family, and I want to work with this coach. If a player sees these facilities in combination with that a team is growing and see potential in a team, is also helpful. But we need to build this club, and we are in the same process where Minnesota was, where Toronto was, Philadelphia is that example too, and that takes time. And every time we want to show progress and we want to go faster than everyone, and especially we under my leadership. But sometimes we have to be also a little bit realistic where we are.
So Gerard, this is Ken, and yeah, I'm the one who went emotional last week, and I'm struggling still, even with that answer. And I'm gonna throw it out there because it's who I am. And we see Barcelona, we see Bayern Munich, we see the big EPL teams, the big European teams, and money drives a lot of production. And that occurs even in MLS, Atlanta, LAFC, Toronto, Seattle. They all are producing, and they're being championship teams. And I guess, I'm a fan, and I think I said this last time, is I know I'm on here and I'm supposed to be media, but I am so much of a fan that I sit there and I want the best for our teams. And I hope you see that in my passion. I just want to know that we're putting the best product out there, and money is a big part of that. And is our team, is our ownership going to put out 3 designated players? And when I say 3 designated players, again, I know Yuya Kubo and Cruz are classified as designated players, but they don't go over that 1.6 million threshold, which is where I sit there and go, those are the true designated players. And again, I bring back all those teams that I just said over in Europe. Money drives victories. And if the club wants to get the championships, they got to put up money to do it. And I just want to know, where are we at in that process? Because that last answer was sort of just this, we're in phase 2 of maybe 5. And I don't know the time frame. I'm struggling, and I'm sorry if that's too harsh. I want to know where we're at. That's, I guess, my question.
No, I think that's not put something on the table to create attention or whatever. I don't feel that at all. I think it's a really good question, and believe me, every time I speak with ownership and with Jeff Birding, together with Jaap, about what is needed to go through the process and to be that successful team who wants to compete for championships in the West End Stadium, and what is needed. Because we also know, if you talk about LAFC, and you talk about Atlanta is struggling now at this moment, but also the other teams who are in the top of the league who spent the most money. Yeah, if we want to compete with them, yeah, at a certain moment we have also to invest. But I believe also to create a fundamental underneath the team, that you not only focus on your DPs, but that you also create depth in your roster. But what you can see now is also when Atlanta don't have these DPs on board, then they are an average team. And we don't want to be an average team. We want to be also, when you don't have the possibility to put in your DPs, say Jurgen Locadia for our situation now, but also Yuya Kubo, who is injured. Yeah, we want to play in a certain way that we can win matches, because I think then you can make also the difference. Having said that, you must also note that our academy structure create homegrown players. Example, Philadelphia spent 5 million every year in their academy. And now you see Arneson is selling by, what I hear, $6 million.
Mm-hmm.
So that are all examples. It is not for us like this. And I can't tell, and I don't want to tell how long it will take. But it will take at least 4 or 5 windows to get products on the pitch, and to build that brand that we can compete. And we also know our peers. We are doing benchmark on that part. Who is investing the most in this league? This season is completely different. But every time to get an understanding about what your competitors are doing gives us also a good insight in what we have to do on our side to make the difference. And if that is enough, yeah, we will see in the future. I cannot give you guarantees, and I also think you don't ask me to give guarantees. But in the process, I always stay close by the truth in the way where I think, together with my team, where we are and what is needed to go to the next step. And I explained it also to my leadership.
So let's talk about, somebody who's made a positive impact on the field right off the bat. And little Alvaro Barreal, been very impressed with his signing. First off, I'd like to know what your initial impressions of him have been on the pitch. And then has his play and his immediate impact possibly influenced you about going to the South American route for bringing players in versus maybe some more of the European players?
Yeah, that's I hear also that my focus is only on the European market. My focus is on talents around the world who can help us and who wants to step in this project. And by signing of Alvaro Barreal, I think the South American market is a very interesting market, but it is also the European market. Every time we are looking for these players who can help us. And I think Alvaro is a young, talented player who is not an arrived player. So he will also have his challenges and his struggles in this league. Yesterday, he didn't show what he showed against Columbus because he's also, like Camogelo, still working on his fitness. But you see what he can do on the ball and his ability in dribbling, carrying, and going forwards, and to be creative in the final third. So far, it gives us a confirmation that this is a good signing. But we have to give him also some time to show more what he did yesterday.
Yeah, I just think, I love seeing a player come in like that, who's a young player and has no problems trying to dictate play, take players on. And that's just an exciting thing. Cincinnati, here we have the theme of that blue collar mentality. And he's really a player that works hard and has some end product there. Now, when you're luring in a player like that who fits your mold, what are your analytics? What specific skill sets are you trying to work with to identify those players?
Yeah, in the process of signing a player, it's starting by what is the data saying of a player, and with a player with some more experience, it's easier to find the data than players who have less experience, and sometimes players who just only playing in the second team of a big club, for instance. Franco Kovakovic is a player from Hoffenheim, a big Bundesliga club, partnering us now, but never played in the first team. So a little bit more challenging to find data on his profile as a winger, what we like to see. So I think for this player, it's very interesting to bring to our club, because Hoffenheim present us this player, and we had a look at him. We put our data system on it, on that profile as a winger, and he came above average, and on some points in carrying and coming and be creative in the box and scoring goals. Very interesting. So for now, hopefully we will have him in the city at the end of this week. He will go to his COVID protocol of 10 days, and then the final 2 games he will be available. So what I said, it's more a trial to see if he is good enough for us in season 21, because he is also we have to use our international spot for him, and that is, I think, showing already a good partnership. Because if he is not hitting the standards and coming through this profile, what we are looking for in the way we want to play for 21, we can send him back. So low risk, and I think a high outcome on this player. But coming back on your question, by data, we go into the profile, we're watching video. At this moment, challenging, because normally we want to see a player also live. So that means also information we receive from other players who are working with him, or coaches we know, our network we will use will use in that to make our decisions. But data is important to give us guidance, and by watching video, we will make the decision to bring players to our club.
We are very pleased to be joined by FC Cincinnati General Manager Gerard Nijkamp here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. Thank you so much for everybody watching us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. It is that time of the show where we give a big shout out and thanks to our tremendous supporters. And none of this would be happening or be possible without the support of Tim Bronsel, Tom Rose, Matt Adamczyk, Mike Hudson, Brian Malone, Jamie Smed, Jonas Tom, Jack Emery, Mike Bowman, Kathleen Francis, Matt Imholt, Matthew Long, Joe Colling, Tara Mullins, Riley Stephen Burke, and Melissa Bingle. Thank you so much for supporting us here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk. To learn more on how you could support the show, head on over to cincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/support. I kind of want to shift the subject a little bit now and talk a little bit more about tactics, right? I know, Gerard, you're a big fan of talking tactics. Coach Goff is also a big fan of talking tactics. You've seen recently the switch back to the 4-3-3, Coach. And how happy were you to see that with the orange and blue over the last couple of games?
I've been saying for a while now that I do think it's important to balance results with where you want to go as a club. So the switch to a 5-3-2, as long as you stick with certain principles of play, such as, getting your outside players into the attack early, those sorts of things, I think that was a good move to stop leaking those goals. However, switching back to 4-3-3 recently, I think is really exciting, because we get to start to see, quite frankly, where the deficiencies are, where the holes are. It seems to me like Stam really wants to have his wingers come infield inside into those half spaces and pick up the ball or combine and allow space for the outside backs to get forward and to be the width in attack. However, it seems to me that the current FC Cincinnati outside backs are struggling a bit in that regard. And then without somebody in the center, like a true number 10, that can really pick the lock, it seems like the team is unable to create from either wide or from center. I'm sort of wondering, we have players like Joe Zhao and Alvaro Barrial, really good 1v1 players that like to play wide and run at defenders. Yuya Kubo kind of strikes me as that kind of player, although he has a bit more in his toolkit, I think. However, with sending the wingers in field and asking the outside backs to create the width, to me, it sort of limits the effect that a guy like a Joe Zhao can have when he's running at defenders. So I'm wondering the profile of the kinds of players that FC Cincinnati is currently looking to bring in. Where does Franco fit in with that? Do we see him as more of a 1v1 wide player, some player that's going to come inside and operate more, combining with the center forward, those sorts of things? So I'm kind of thinking, what's the profile of an attacking player that we're going to look in to kind of solve this goal scoring problem? Because it's not just that FC Cincinnati is struggling to score goals right now. It seems like they don't have a definitive way to create chances. They don't seem to really continually create from wide or from the center. It just kind of happens to be
we've
mostly
seen
from
the
set
switch
pieces
recently,
at the
Michael. I
moment.
know as a former player, you've been singing the praises of one Joe Zhao. We saw him play left back a little bit this week. We've seen him pretty much all over the pitch. But when you saw that the orange and blue went back to the 4-3-3, what were your initial thoughts seeing that?
I was excited. Like Coach said, it makes you excited to see the team playing and putting the stall out for what is to come next year. I think the back five was a way to stop the bleeding. of sorts from last year, in particular, in some of the defensive deficiencies. And it was there for a reason. And you saw the benefit of it from the MLS's back tournament. And at some point, I understand why Jaap may have kept going with it this year, but I wish we could have seen it sooner. And I understand there was a timing of players because of the pandemic. Players have to go through protocols and quarantining and everything. But you're really starting to see some of the seeds starting to bear fruit for next year. So I like the move. And as we talk about Joe Zhao, I like Joe Zhao. Joe Zhao is flexing his muscles. He's got speed, and speed kills in this league. And I love his direct nature. And so a question for Gerard, if you will, is when you see a player like Joe Zhao and you compare him to some of the bigger name signings like Jurgen Locadia, Sim de Jong, and at times Yuya Kubo, what do you make of the struggles that they've had? Is it the style of play that's been implemented, maybe them not playing in their preferred positions, or is it just coming to a new country? But what do you make of some of the big name struggles so far this season?
Yeah, that is, of course, also from everything a little bit. Culture, understanding of what are the requirements to be successful in this league as an individual is a part of it. What we are doing and try to implement a certain way of playing. You can call it a philosophy, working from certain principles when we have the ball, but also when we don't have the ball. By your colleague who said, hey, we don't create more of a lot of chances. We create more chances than last season. And so we create also more expected goals, but we don't score more goals. But the way we want to create these goals are the chances we want to see in the way we want to play. It's a little bit cryptical, but in the way how we want to do it, this gives us more future than we are going back again in the way of what we did in Orlando. And that was also by Jaap a decision of how he wants to start with the team, was not ready to play his way he wants to play with the team, offensive soccer, dominant soccer, having the ball, action and not reaction soccer. And step by step, you see that he was going through with his team to go back to the 1-4-3-3. And it was a different team where it was the first match he was playing against Columbus in Orlando. But yes, new players, you saw needs time to adapt to all these new things. Joe Zhao is a more experienced guy, was a long time, of course, in Germany. We bring him last summer into the club. Jaap likes him a lot on his pace, on his working rate. Yesterday, very interesting also a part playing as a right full back, because coming back on the way of playing, our wingers playing more coming on the inside because they have the opposite foot on the side. So a left footer on the right side, a right footer on the left side. So they create also space for the right fullback and the left fullback. Because in modern football, these are a lot of times the most offensive players who are carrying and crossing the ball and creating the assist. A lot of movements in our midfield. And with Camo, you can see now we are playing more in depth. We are pushing more up front. And I hope we can see Jurgen in combination with Camo and Harris in the position, that he can do more from not only expected goals, but also produce goals and execute that. So a lot of things, what is needed to be successful, and sometimes they are also struggling. What we also can see, not only we, but everyone.
Okay, Gerard, this is Ken again. I have a question actually on international spots. Currently, we're sitting on 9, and in Just through the rumor mill, I think Michael van der Werf is going to get a green card, and that leaves 8 players. I know key players. The abundance of the best players is going to be foreigners at the most common. Just to say, how many international spots do you see opening up for next year for you to continue building this team up, rebuilding it, or however you want to word that correctly? You know, how many of those positions do you see coming available over the next window?
Yeah, that's at this moment hard to say, because with a few guys we are working on their green cards to create that flexibility of these international spots. It is not rocket science to say that your international spots players can bring something different to the team and has to make the difference. Not only your DPs, but also your TAM, who you put in your international, you're finding in your international market. I cannot put a number on that, because what I knew now from experience, that can change very quickly, and sometimes you are stuck on a certain amount of spots. And then you have to be creative. You can buy a spot from another club. What we did with New England now. Every time we are working on that. But to say, hey, I need 8, I need 9, I need 10 international spots to be successful, I think that's hard to say. What I can say, what we need for next season in positions, that is in the midfield, a creator who can support and our front players. That will be most of DPs. In defense, we really need a stakeholder. And I think one of you mentioned it already, that we have on the right left fullback position also needs for 21. Who can fill in the way Jaap wants to play on these positions, up and down. In Germany, they have a nice word for it, Außenbahnspieler. That means with a lot of pace, covering a lot of distance in a high speed. So that is the positions we are already looking for. And we have also make our evaluation about the DPs we have now, and we will do that in a few weeks, and we will be ready. But to come back on your question, it's hard to say an exact number on that.
I got a quick follow-up question, and this is just really a yes or no, and I'm going to be straightforward. We were in the market actually for a Reading fullback over the summer, and I can't remember his last name.
Tyler Blackett.
Blackett, yeah. Was the lack of having an international spot potentially play into the fact that he did not come here? You can answer yes, no, maybe so. I just want to ask because that's who I am.
Yes, and that is that is also the challenge I feel in this league sometimes, when you have really the possibility to sign very interesting players for our club. That it is not the right moment, because you were thinking players get a green card in a few weeks. It is not happening, and this player must make a decision. He was going to Nottingham Forest. He couldn't wait longer. And then it is what it is. But it was a pity. So a little bit more explanation, but the answer is yes.
Well, one of the big topics last week on the show, Gerard, was the lack, and maybe lack's not the right word, but it feels like there's from a domestic standpoint where we seem to be struggling at the moment. I would say, I'm looking at the back line, and somebody that I'm pleasantly surprised at over the last few weeks, finally getting his opportunity to play, as Nick Hagglund. He has not looked like he's been out of place. Like, it seems like he could potentially be one of those guys that's a domestic player that you could build upon this back line. I don't know if he's a starter every day or every match in this league, but he's certainly in good form at the moment, and I'm sure you're quite pleased with that.
Yeah, that was also the reason we renew his contract for 2020, because we were thinking the same in the end of 2019, last season, what he could do for our club. Maybe not always a starter, but as a backup, and when we are in trouble, you can rely on him. Great player, great person, fantastic in the locker room. I think every coach, Jaap, also love these kind of players, and what he shows now at this moment, it's, I think, very positive. So we were looking at him also in that way for 21, but if he is renewing his contract, I cannot say at this moment. But you're right. We talk every time about international spots, the South American market, the European market, the Asian market maybe. But there is also a big focus on our domestic market. And I think that is the less on experience we have in this league to finding these interesting players, because they create also the fundamental of our roster, and especially the strength in depth. We need now Saad Abdesalam was back up in Seattle, was a little bit like Nick Hagland, was also now playing his third match in a row. So we need more also of these players, because we cannot only sign internationals, as you know. So and that takes also time, and sometimes you will get that opportunity, but with a lot of colleagues in this league, we are all doing the same, and with all these new teams are coming in, will be only become harder. But then the story of FC Cincinnati, building our brand, is even more important to attract these domestic players, or the domestic players who are now part of the league, or who make a step into the international competitions and want to come back. So that's also a part of our job to get that market good visible and in place.
I think that the need for domestic talent is something that you just touched on, Gerard, and I'm really grateful to hear that. I've been like Sub said a little bit earlier, I was really happy with Nick Hagland and his play. And obviously we have Frankie Amaya, who's young and still growing, but has put in a lot of solid performances. At the same time, we've seen a squad in Nashville go out and get a Walker Zimmerman and Alex Mule, sort of like through the trade market. We've seen other teams like Philadelphia be able to build through their academy, which obviously FC Cincinnati is going to take a few years to get there. I'm wondering what the strategy is, and I'm sure it's going to be a combination, but is there a key takeaway or a key place that we should be looking for this domestic talent? Are we going to go to the trade market? Are we going to try to build through the draft? What is, because it is so difficult to find that domestic talent, and nobody expects that to happen overnight. So I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about what the thought is on how that is going to come about.
Yeah, of course, the draft is important. So the combines who are now starting, and there will be in November another one. Hunter Freeman, our director of scouting and recruitment, will be present there, because that is interesting. The USL competition is an interesting one. Are there young players who have the potential to make the next step to MLS? So that there is a scouting a part on it. And I think the most important group of producing players for our first team is our homegrown players. And yes, that takes time. And the way Philly, Red Bull, as examples, are doing that now already for years with their second team in the USL, and hopefully the league will having soon a reserve under 23 competition in place, that will help a lot. But it's not only to have teams on certain levels, but it's to creating a player pathway, what's starting at a younger age, and to find these talents in affiliates, in clubs, in academies in our region, and bring them through the academy into our first team. And I will be supportive to invest in the future in our academy, because that is the most easiest way to get domestic players into our first team. But that takes also time, and to do it on the short term, we have to be creative. Draft, the combine, the USL competition, that are possibilities. But also to see who is on the bench in the other teams in the MLS, and hopefully we can make players enthusiastic to choose for our club. Brandon Vasquez this season, Saad Abdel Salam was an example, and to put that standard as high as possible.
Well, Gerard, I know we've invited you on here, and we've peppered you with a lot of questions here, and I don't think I've ever asked a guest on the show if they have any questions for us. Gerard, do you have any questions for us about fans of FC Cincinnati, what we're feeling? Like, is there anything you want to ask us by chance?
Yeah, I was of course preparing this the way we talk now in the podcast, and I was thinking to start with a question, and to ask, and of course in every question is a little bit of that, a little bit of our frustration, of our nice improvement of the team. But the question is just general. What do we think from our club in the widest perspective? Because we can have the focus on our only on our first team, but without our fans in the stadiums, building a beautiful stadium here in downtown Cincinnati on the West End, what is that doing with you guys, and how do you feel about it? That's I'm curious about that.
Bri, you want to chime in?
So my nickname among our listeners is Stevie Sunshine, apparently, where I always put a smile on things. And I am very excited, since you've come on, the quality of player that we've been linked to. I know things don't always pan out, whether that's, Gaston Pereira or Mario Götze. I don't know how serious those things were, but I like the fact that we're trying to go get those guys, and then you go on the back end and bring in a Mocacho and a Barreal, and I see those guys. Now I do have questions about, is De Jong ever gonna, hit the promise that we were expecting? But overall, as a fan, of course, I'm Stevie Sunshine. I'm very excited to see where I believe that, in a year or two, that we won't just be an average team, that we'll have that shot to go and be top 3.
It's so funny that he's Stevie Sunshine, yet we know him as the Angry Twin.
I curtailed my drinking habits a little bit, so.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm also, for me personally, I'm first of all, I'm thankful that we have soccer in Cincinnati, right? I mean, to think that we're 5 years into a club that I never imagined we would ever have, right? Most of us, I won't name names on Cincinnati Soccer Talk, but some of them were crew fans at one point, because there was no Major League Soccer team in Cincinnati. I was not one of those, but Brian's raising his hand there. So I'm thankful that there is a team. I'm thankful that we're even doing this in the first place, right? So I'm excited. I like where things are headed. The fact that there's going to be a brand new stadium on a grass surface, I'm sure you're excited about that too, right, Gerard? The grass surface.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
no, absolutely.
I'm thankful for what we've got. Do I want the team to perform better? Do I want them to play better and be more consistent and be attacking and scoring goals and getting me off the seat. Yeah, of course. I think we all do. But I am also understanding that this is you were kind of dealt a bad hand when you arrived. So, it's going to be a process. Michael?
You captured exactly what I wanted to say. Gerard, I can't imagine the work that you've had to do to get some of the weeds out from the foundation that was laid before you got here. And even while you got here, it takes a lot of work to get things going. And I was talking with some people on Extra Time Radio, and we all just came to this agreement of there's an excitement with the stadium coming. It's a breath of fresh air. It almost provides a reset for this club that's much needed. And I'm really excited at some of the pieces that you brought in. You see real attacking intent. So we talk about Barriel. We talk about, I like Kubo quite a bit, and that Rubik's Cube of sorts of trying to figure out what's his best position in this league. We know what he brings from his past career and on the international stage, but every league is different. And 2021 doesn't start when the ball kicks off in 2021. It starts now. It starts a few months ago. It started the MLS back tournament. So to bring in the caliber of the coach you brought in, that is what a club like FC Cincinnati, and as a former player, it needs. A coach who commands respect, who has been there, done that, and you really start seeing some of the pieces take shape. So I agree with these guys. I'm excited, and it's exciting to kind of to get a little bit of an insight, almost pick your brain a bit, and seeing the methodical nature. Is every general manager is very methodical. So it's good to see you showing some of that methodical wherewithal and bringing certain pieces. And I loved what you said about we have some pieces that will help us for now, but we're also thinking about pieces that will help us in the future and long term for the stadium. I think that is so wise, and I think we'll see the benefits of that next year.
Coach, I know you want to chime in as well.
Yeah, I just, quite frankly, from the coaching and the tactics side, I'm excited about Jaap Stam. I know that a lot of people have criticized him thinking he's not getting results, but I've seen some small tactical adjustments. Against Columbus, he started to have one of the center backs shift into the midfield when Medunjanin drops deep into the back line to get on the ball and dictate play. And that just provided another option just to kind of shift the point of the buildup. And so I think little things like that I see an FC Cincinnati coach in the dugout who is seeing the game and understanding those finer points of how he can exploit the opposition. So I think that Jaap has some learning to do in terms of MLS and the other teams, but that's to be expected. So you couple that with the new stadium, just from the tactics side, I think seeing a method and an understanding from a coach, an idea. That's what I'm really excited about. Every time, I feel like every game I pick up on something a little bit differently that Jaap is trying to do that makes me as a fan more interested to see what's going to happen next.
All right, Ken, I'm scared to ask.
Oh, I think I might be the FCC front office most hated fan. I don't know. I'm just, I'm excited for the stadium. I am 100%. Can't wait for the stadium. I'm nervous for the product on the pitch, and I'm a fan. Again, I'm going to say it, I'm just concerned, sort of like you've said, Gerard, that it's 4 or 5 windows, and I said this the last show, and I mean it. This podcast, these fans, everybody listening, we got this team here, and I say that I know Carl and Jeff did all the heavy lifting, but my God, we showed up, and I want to feel validated, and that's what I need to feel. I need to feel some validation, and a stadium is pretty piece of a coin to put on the dresser and say, yeah, that's ours, and it looks great. But man, I want to rub it in all the other fans' faces, and I say rub it in the nicest way of like, hey, we're the champions. Hey, we've done this, and I that's what I want. And I do understand, and I do agree with you were handed a bad hand. And I 100% will agree that it was not an easy situation. But it was also why I came back and I said, are we going to have 3 DPs? Because I want to know our ownership is in this. I want to know they are in it. And maybe that's a little bit of a concern for me after this call is because I understand the dynamic of you just can't go out and buy that per se, that pretty cool, that pretty new piece of new toy, player. But I want to have some excitement for next year. And it's also why I asked for the international player spots and how easy it can be moved, because I feel like you might be handcuffed there a little bit too. And I'm truly just speaking as a fan of how I feel and my concerns. How you answer those and address that is not just you, it's the club. That'll tell me how I'm satisfied. I mean, honestly, you're the caretaker of our club. You are. And Jeff has handed you all of our hopes and dreams and given them to you, and for you to guide us, into a much brighter spot. And I 100% believe you can do it. I'm just concerned of like where we're going to end up at. And maybe that's fair or not fair. Like you said, you can't answer. You can't make any promises. And maybe that's my promise of I can't make any promises of how I feel other than, yes, I'm happy to have a new stadium. I want to know. I want to know they're in it. They want to deliver that championship for us. And I say that because that's just how I feel. And that's how I speak. I'm sorry. If it's too direct. That's just who I am. I mean, I love this club. I absolutely do. I've waited for soccer my entire life, and I'm not going to go into the whole history. And there's 30,000, 50,000 other fans in this city that love this club as much as I do. And we all show it in different ways. And it hurts. It truly hurts when I go into work and we've had a bad game and somebody brings something up to me, and it affects me. And I think it affects a lot of people. And that's the only reason why I'm being honest, is just that's how I feel. And those are my concerns. And I gotta live with what you say and what you do. And I can't change that. That's just, I'm being the fan. That's me. Sorry.
No, but I'm very happy with to be open and sometimes also critical in the way how we are doing it, in which way we are doing it. Also, we must not forget, and I didn't address it when you asked that question about what can we do with the DPs. Don't forget ownership under leadership from Carl, with the other owners and Jeff. They invest also in the stadium and to create that infrastructure. So that is also an investment by getting revenues in the next years, so I can invest in new players. So that needs also time, and we cannot build this in one season. That will frustrate maybe, but that takes time. I cannot say anything else about it.
What, you can't go out and get Mario Götze and all these other guys in one window? Come on!
I mean, I hear Leo Messi's going to be done after this year at Barcelona.
I say it's a pity that Götze was not signing for us, because he scored last weekend his first goal against Pek Zwolle with PSV Eindhoven. My former president was very sad. He said, "Gerard, why did you sign him? Because that he could score for PSV."
Oh, that's funny how that worked out, right, Gerard?
But I say one thing. It is never in any way that I feel that our ownership handcuff me in the way that I cannot do things for our club. Everything is open to discuss. Every profile we can go through it. So that gives a lot of confidence for me to do my work in the best way. But I don't only want to be successful today with FC Cincinnati. I want that FC Cincinnati is successful in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years and further. And I think that is for all of us, and sometimes difficult to accept now, and I understand, because we want to be successful now already. But that takes time.
Well, Gerard, we know you're a busy man, and we cannot thank you enough for joining us here, spending a whole hour with us. I know it's a lot of questions, a lot of topics, and there's a lot going on, but we certainly appreciate you being open and willing to come on the show and discuss what's going on with FC Cincinnati. And we hope that we could get a chance to do it again here real soon.
Yes, thank you for having me, and speak soon.
Yep,
Thank you,
absolutely.
Gerard.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
And that is FC Cincinnati General Manager Gerard Nijkamp joining us here on the show. Don't forget, you can rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Head on over to CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com/Apple Podcasts. So make sure you get subscribed and leave us a review. What did you think of tonight's conversation with Gerard Nijkamp? Let us know. You can also email us feedback at CincinnatiSoccerTalk.com. We've got March to Match Day coming up this week. I think Boston Brazel is back from vacation. Shocker, he took another one. They'll be looking ahead to this week's match. I believe it's Sporting Kansas City, if I'm not mistaken. And then, of course, we've got Talking Tactics with Coach Brad Goff. Coach, what's on tap? You see what I did? What's on tap? You get it? With your show this week on Talking Tactics.
I get it. Yeah, I think I'm going to be drinking something from Street Side. I have a nice mix pack in my fridge right now. So, but the soccer stuff, yeah, I'll probably break down a match, talk about how FC Cincinnati can continue to get better, and all the little things that I was telling Gerard that I'm seeing from Stom. I like to point those out on the show. And of course, I love to hear from the fans, get questions in for the mailbag. That's my favorite part of the show. So
you can check out Talking Tactics on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, tune in wherever you get your podcasts. Go check that out as well and leave a rating review there too. All right, let's wrap things up real quickly. I'll start with you, Brian Weigel. You got any final thoughts as we get out of here?
A lot to digest, but how many clubs have their GM come on and talk to you guys candidly like this? And I'm sure we'll be yelled at for not being too hard on the guy, or we'll be yelled at for being, the opposite. So, we do the best we can, and I think he gave us a lot of great answers. I think there's a lot of questions, and that's the passion of FC Cincinnati. So
appreciate you being on the show, bud. All right, I'm going to kick it over to you, Ken Hetker. Thanks again for being on back-to-back weeks. That's a rarity for you, buddy.
I know. I gotta agree with Brian. It is very unique for a club to give us access to the GM, and I appreciate that time. But as someone stated, I think we should demand better. I'm just kidding.
Making a shirt.
Yeah, we're making a shirt. I'm happy he came on, and maybe he helped some people and address some areas, and we'll see where we go. That's me.
Appreciate you being on the show again.
Thanks, guys.
Michael Lahoud, final thoughts?
I love Gerard being on the show, but Ken Hetker for president. That is, I'm telling you, those of you listening, Ken, I love you. I love your realness. What you said last week, and I'm so happy that you said it, and never be apologizing or apologetic about being a fan and being passionate, because this game is about the fans. And yes, there's new stadiums, there's new stuff, but the fans is what makes professional soccer. And so I just hats off to you, and really hats off to the fans, because without the fans, this club doesn't exist. The fans are why the club is where it is. And it's the loyalty of the fans. It's because Cincinnati is a sports town, and it means more, and it should mean more. And I think holding the club accountable in an honest way is what sports are about. It's what soccer is about. You see it in the biggest countries and in the most successful soccer countries. And I think that type of accountability, coupled with a new stadium, coupled with hearing from Gerard and having a GM who shows character to come in on a show when the club has been knocked out of the playoffs. There's a lot brewing here, and all this stuff has the opportunity to come together to turn things around for this club. So a year from now, we're popping growlers to celebrate a playoff clinch. Hopefully you can watch this tape and say, you heard it here first. But I just wanted to say Ken Hetker for president.
Appreciate you being on the show, Mike, as always.
Thank you for having me, as always.
Coach, do you even have any final thoughts? I kicked it over to you about your show, but you want to wrap up with anything?
Yeah, I would love some final thoughts. Listen, big props to Gerard for coming on. And listen, I'm not picky. Talking tactics, I don't need Yop Stam on. I'm happy to have Yohan DeMay. Heck, I'll take talk video with Diego Martinez del Campo, whatever you guys want to send me. No, but seriously, I think that there's lots of comments about this inconsistency of this club. And for me, think about last year. Last year, I would have killed for some inconsistency. Throw in a win over Columbus in between all those losses, right? For that inconsistency. This club is young. They're inconsistent. Everything is different from their different owner, different coaching staff, multiple coaches, different roster builds. So sure, we've seen other clubs have different amounts of success and different amounts of times. But judge FC Cincinnati against FC Cincinnati. This club is moving forward. It is getting better. And I think that there's a lot of positivity heading into 2021, more so than even just the stadium.
I appreciate you being on the show, Coach.
So happy to be here.
I can tell. All right. Appreciate FC Cincinnati General Manager Gerard Nijkamp joining us this week on the show. Thanks to the club for making that happen. I'm going to bring the show down a little bit. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Total Soccer Show, Daryl Grove has been a mainstay in the soccer podcasting community for years. And about a year ago, we found out that he was diagnosed with cancer. And we thought that things were progressing and looking good, but we got some sad news this week regarding his health. And I just want to say from all of us here at Cincinnati Soccer Talk to the Total Soccer Show community, we're thinking about you. We're praying for you. And Daryl, we hope at this time that you find some peace and are able to, I don't even know how to end it. It's just disappointing. Cancer sucks. It's the worst. And we've all been touched by somebody or know somebody that has either passed away from it or hopefully somebody that has beat it. But Daryl, we're thinking about you, and our thoughts go out to you and your family, buddy. That's going to do it for this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. And my thanks to Ken Hetker, Brian Weigel, Coach Brad Goff, and Michael LaHood. I'm Subs, reminding you to watch your tackles, and we'll see y'all next week.